looks at audio almost like rubber bands, and like if anything's a little bit out of the pocket or needs to be adjusted, you can go in and totally dial it in however you need to.
What's up? You got your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe, cause today we're gonna be talking about Ableton Live. What had happened was... Now, throughout the years, there have been many DAWs that came and went. But regardless of that fact, one DAW has always stood amongst the top in music production. Well, let's start by telling it through the eyes of Gerhard Bayless, the CEO of Ableton Live. So Gerhard grew up in Munich, Germany, known for its century-old buildings and Oktoberfest. Anyone thirsty? So Gerhard was doing what any young kid was doing in Munich, Germany at the time. Jamming out to the funky sounds of ABBA. Yes, songs like Dancing Queen and I Do, I Do, I Do was ringing out in Gerhard's head. But then something phenomenal in Germany occurred that changed everything for Gerhard. And that was the Berlin Wall came crumbling down. Finally, East and West Germany, who were separated for decades, could finally see their relatives across the other side of the country, just to find out that they can't stand those relatives either. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you got relatives that you never seen before and stuff, and you're always thinking, man, it'll be great to see them. And when you see them, you find out they're a-holes just like the rest of your relatives. So growing up, Gerhard's brother changes his life, introducing him to the sounds of Jean-Michel Jarre. The beautiful music in his albums was just amazing to Gerhard that he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And it wasn't so much about the songs, but it was really about the sonic atmospheric sounds within the album that just blew Gerhard's mind. So Gerhard went to study programming at the Technical School of Berlin. And during his time there, he ran into Robert Henke. They were both studying programming, and they decided to do what any two guys would do that meet up in college. That's right, start a techno-electronic fusion band. So they started a band called Monolake, and they decided to perform in different shows out there. So Robert was really inspired by software technology and decided to release a patch that he created on the Mac software. And that patch was called the PX18 sequencer. And it basically allowed them to switch patterns in a timeline that they MIDI'd out to different synthesizers. It actually led to their first build of Live, which some of their close friends felt was very innovative. So they decided to do what any developers would do if they have a pretty innovative product. Let's take it to Namm. So during the late 90s, they decided to go with it to Namm. And while in Namm, they got kind of a rude awakening. They had like the smallest booth. The Namm guys put their booth all the way in the back near the garbage cans. It was pretty bad. While all the other big brand names like Roland, Alesis, and Yamaha were in the front just controlling the Namm dance floor, Gerhard and Robert was all the way in the back. Hours passed by, nobody was really checking their booth. But then something interesting happened. Hans Zimmer, yes, the Hans Zimmer, the musical composer responsible for making the music for The Lion King and Gladiator, decided to diddy-bop his way down to Namm and check out the booths. So when he got to Gerhard and Robert's booth, he asked them, "What is this?" They showed them their product and said, "Yeah, this is a loop-based product which allows you to change the tempo without changing the pitch of the sound that you're using." So Hans said, "Let me get this straight. With this software, I can change the tempo without changing the pitch?" They were like, "Yeah." He said, "Show me." And they did. And Hans was impressed. And then after Hans walked away, all of a sudden, everybody started surrounding the booth. And from that moment, fast forward to 2001, and Gerhard, Robert, along with Ben Rogendorf, another talented developer, decided to release a product that is now legendary in music software production. And that product is known to us as Ableton Live. This was a software sequencer allowing you to play back short audio clips, sound bites, long mastered production recordings, or anything in between. It could work on both platforms, Mac and PC. Pick your choice. Ableton Live can work on a simple 128 megabytes of RAM. You can use a live effect or any VST plugin with a simple drag and drop onto the track. It has a high Q option that gives each clip high quality playback. Live enabled you to record a new clip onto your track straight from your sound card's input. You could easily create beat match sets that could be altered and changed at will, that if you were performing live would keep the crowd pumping and pumping hard. Live also gives you high quality effects that makes working with samples and loops easy and enjoyable. Ladies and gentlemen, when Ableton Live was released, the response was kind of 50-50. Now, when Ableton first came out, you had some people that loved it instantly, but you had some folks that just couldn't wrap their head around it. Ableton Live just was too intimidating for some folks. It looked like climbing Mount Everest. It just looked like impossible to wrap your head around. Some people found Ableton Live so confusing that it avoided the hacking spree that happened to FL Studio, Reason, and Acid Pro. People didn't hack Ableton Live because it was too hard. When they try to hack it, they was like, oh, okay, yeah, now I'm gonna make beats like DJ Premier. And when they were putting in, they were like, okay, so how do I put my drums in here? They were like, where the heck are the audio files? And what is this column that looks like my grandma's bookshelf? Well, like, what's going on in here? It was too hard that they decided, let me go to a LimeWire and hack something else. This thing is too difficult. Folks were too used to the linear DAW style. You have all these weird looking instruments with parameters on top of parameters on top of more parameters. You just didn't understand what was going on with this thing. But the Ableton guys didn't let that stop them. They had a pretty good marketing plan. Boy, did they have a great marketing plan. Anytime you brought like a MIDI controller or any kind of hardware product, or even some software products, they bundled in Ableton Lite with the product. So half of the people decided to figure out, okay, what is this Ableton Lite thing all about? While the other half that looked at it said, nah, I'll just play around with my MIDI controller. I don't need any new software applications to learn. But Ableton never stopped. Year after year after year, they kept implementing new devices, new workflows, and new features in their DAW. At first, you couldn't do MIDI sequencing on Ableton Live, but later on, they added MIDI sequencing. There was a time when you couldn't do non-destructive audio editing, but then later on, they added non-destructive audio editing. Ableton was making all the right decisions. It's like you're being the king of the arcade and you're the master of Mortal Kombat. You know what I'm saying? Johnny comes to the arcade, you beat Johnny. Greg comes in, you beat Greg. O'Shea comes through, you destroy O'Shea. But then something happens. The big kids come by. Now, these kids look like Mr. Clean on steroids. So you have an executive decision to make. Do you A, beat Mr. Clean's angry grandkids? Or do you B, let them win and no longer hold the crown as the king of Mortal Kombat? So you decide to play them. You beat them the first round. The second round comes up, and right before the second round starts, Mikey comes in. You know Mikey, the one that always dresses like a cast member of West Side Story? Yeah, that guy. He comes in the arcade, and you're like, oh, hey, great, Mikey, come through. You want to play? Mikey's like, yeah, man, I've been waiting to play all day. You're like, yeah, here you go. So Mikey beats the kids, and later on finds out Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to F with. That's how Ableton Live was making all the right decisions. Now, the workflow of Ableton is like this. I don't know, it's too crazy. I don't know the workflow. Help me. I'm just kidding. The workflow of Ableton is like this. Now, you got these columns on your main page, right? They look like stacks of bookshelves. The column going down is sort of like your sequence. So that's all the parts that's making your sequence. So when you make a sequence and it has your kick, your snare, your piano sound, your bass, you know, that whole sequence, that's what you got going down. The column going across are your tracks. Okay, so that first column is track 1 on that first section, followed by track 2, track 3. That's what you got going across. Okay, so now you know your tracks and your sequence. Now, when you drag in a file like an MP3 or a WAV file, your song, when you drag it on the track, down below shows basically that file. What you can do is you can make a loop region, and with that loop region, just go to different sections of the song, of the file, and it will loop. So whenever you click the play button on one of these tracks, it will play that loop section. And if you move the loop section, if you go down to the bottom of the screen and move the loop section, that play button will play that new section that you got your loop on. And they call those clips. When you press play on a clip, it's gonna play that loop section of some track. And that's pretty much it. If you want to throw a certain instrument or a plugin on your track, just go to the left of the screen, choose the plugin or instrument, and just drag and drop it on the track and get the tweaking. So that's pretty much the concept of Ableton Live. Now, if this is all confusing to you and you're like, oh, that kind of sounds like a lot of stuff, don't worry about it. Just click on the arranger page, and on the arranger page, it allows you to use Ableton as a conventional linear DAW. You know, just like you would on Pro Tools or Studio One. You pretty much could do the same thing. So when Ableton Live came out, it was about $219. And folks did purchase it. It was one of the few DAWs out there that was solid and stable, to a point that DJs chose Ableton Live as their weapon of choice for a DAW, using it in their live performance. The Ableton Live clip launching feature just made it real easy to set up your loops and set up your different sounds and songs and just play them with a click of a button. Many famous producers used Ableton Live. The list goes on and on, from DJ Jazzy Jeff to Ski Beats to Diplo to Daft Punk to Richard Devine to John Hopkins to Gene Michael John to Young Guru. You name it, they used it. Ableton Live throughout the years won many awards for its stability and just creative progress. Ableton really developed itself to one of the best software production communities out there. And Ableton even offered a lot of employment opportunities for its users. You could become an Ableton licensed teacher. They donated their products like the push to different schools out there, and had programs that if you returned the push, they would send it out to a school of need and basically keep you up to date with what's going on with your refurbished push. So something that you used probably a decade ago, now you can see a kid overseas in another country using your push and getting busy. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's Ableton Live. What had happened was... So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you, to like and subscribe. And I'm signing off.